Welcome to Running for Real, a global community with a shared love and curiosity for running. Together we reconnect with the reasons why we love to run and discover ways it helps us become better people. Whether it's the quiet moments of a morning run while the rest of the world still sleeps, or befriending the strangers next to you at the start line of a race. We are here to connect with others who see running as the common thread that weaves our lives together. Come join me, Tina Muir, as I talk with people from all walks of life, united by a love of running. Hello, my friends. Welcome to episode 279 of the Running for Real podcast. I am excited that you are here, appreciating you for joining us today. And we have a special episode for you today in that I'm excited that I get to welcome Elyse Kopecky to the show. Elyse, I have interviewed before for one of our podcast series or audio series that were released a few years ago, but I haven't actually had her on the regular show. So most of you probably know Elyse through her 3 times New York Times bestselling author cookbooks that she co-authored with Shalane Flanagan. So that's Run Fast, Eat Slow, Run Fast, Cook Fast, Eat Slow, and her most recent one, Rise and Run. I have all 3 of those. I use them all. I mean, you would think that I'd been like throwing my ingredients all over them because they are well loved. Let's just say that. Elyse also was the person that I spent 10 miles with of the first 10 miles of the New York City Marathon, running along with Lindsay Krause. And it was a really special experience for me and a special experience for Elyse. Now, today we go into 3 different areas, really. We talk about Elyse's history. We talk about some imposter syndrome stuff, about dealing with the feeling of enoughness. We talk about really how the nutrition changes she made in her life really made the marathon possible. We talk about our New York experience, and we do talk a little bit about picky eaters. So if you have a picky eater child, you are definitely going to want to hear that part. And then in the final section, we actually get on to talk a little bit about some of the things that she still finds difficult to this day. And I think this episode will really allow you to get to see a side of Elyse that you may not have heard before on other podcasts. So even if you've heard her story before, we try not to go over the same things again, and this is different in a new way. So without any further ado, I would like to take a moment to thank one of our sponsors, and we'll be right to this episode with Elyse Kopecky. Thank you to Tracksmith for sponsoring this episode of the Running for Real podcast. I have been talking about Tracksmith for years now. They have my absolute favorite clothes. I am wearing them right now to record this. I'm wearing 2 layers of Tracksmith actually to record this. I have the Brighton base underneath and I have one of the zip-ups on top. I wear them throughout my day-to-day life and then I wear them to run. I feel like that is such a good way to get the use out of them. You know I am passionate about sustainability and these clothes are quality. They last well. The clothes that I've had well over 2 years look exactly the same as the day I first received them. And that is what I think is really important to mention about sustainability. Yes, it is important to use sustainable items and materials when we can, but the best thing we can do is hold on to our items for as long as we can and use the heck out of them. And that is what you can do with Tracksmith. As I said, I wear it in my day-to-day life and then I wear it in my running too, so I get double use out of it. They are so comfortable. They are stylish, they're simple and sleek, and I've asked for some of their stuff for myself for Christmas because I just adore it. So as I've mentioned before, the Brighton base layer, which I'm wearing right now, is one of my absolute favorite items for this time of year. I love the spice color they have right now. They also have a walnut, a charcoal, which is what I'm wearing now. And it is just the seamless, lightweight long sleeve. And it's made from this engineered merino mesh. So you can go to tracksmith.com/collection/running-for-real. I know that's a bit of a mouthful. So you can also just go to the show notes to check out the link there. Or you can just use code TINA15, which will donate 5% of your order to Runners for Public Lands, which is a non-profit environmental organization dedicated to environmental justice, advocacy, and conservation. A fantastic non-profit to support, and 5% of your sales will go to that. So thank you to Tracksmith for that. I appreciate you. I appreciate Tracksmith, and let's get back to the episode. Elyse, I'm excited that you are here on the Running for Real podcast, and we've had 10 whole miles of time to spend together, which we're going to talk about, but welcome. I'm excited you're here.
It's great to connect again after seeing you in New York.
Yeah, that was, we're going to go into that in a minute. I really cherished that race. I cherished that time spent with you and that experience we got together. And we can dig into that in a minute, but I would imagine most of my listeners at this point know who you are, know what you have been doing. And I've mentioned some of the accolades and things that you have done in your career in the intro. But I would love for you to start maybe by telling the listeners, who are you beyond those New York Times bestselling author and just the expert that people would look to for learning about nutrition and how to look after their bodies. What would you say? Who is Elyse beyond that?
Well, right now I'm in the thick of parenting. So number one priority is motherhood. I've got two young ones, a 4-year-old boy who has redefined picky eating for me, and a 7-year-old daughter who loves everything I cook. So I've got a good sense of how challenging how challenging it is to feed young kids. And other priority for me is just spending time in nature. I live in Bend, Oregon, close to the mountains. So I love to get outside and move my body. Trail running is my number one passion, but any time spent in nature helps ground me and has really helped me this past 2 years through COVID and everything.
Oh, I am with you there in both of those things. And it's so funny hearing you say about having a picky eater son, because that I actually typed that out as a question. Like, as someone with a picky eater, I was like, I've been for these past few months of like, how did this happen to me? Like, I was doing everything right. Like, how did this happen? And I was going to type it to you to ask you. And then I thought, no, there's no way she's got a picky eater. So it's funny you mentioned that. So I want to actually go into that at some point, because I'm sure there are other people listening. But I would like to talk about your running a little bit. Now, as I mentioned, you and I ran 10 miles of the New York City Marathon together from the start to around mile 10. And I haven't listened. And then I picked it up a little bit, yes. But to be fair, you didn't. Well, you must have picked it up after I left too, because you didn't finish that far behind me. So, yeah, for the pace you and Lindsay Krause, who was running with us as well, said you were going to be running. I think we can go into how you were feeling in a minute, but I'd love to start with going into this race. You said you wanted this to be the case in like a dream situation. And it was. You ended up on the start line, as did I. Next to Shalane, and who is, your best friend and someone who you have written you've got 3 New York Times bestsellers now, right?
Yes.
This one was as well. Okay. So you're 3 times New York Times bestselling co-author, Shalane Flanagan. And I haven't listened, but I do know that you were on Ali's podcast. So I don't want to go over, what I'm assuming a lot of the same details of what was it like there. But I would love for you to talk about, experiencing this with you starting the race. You had Shalane there. Abby Wambach came up at one point, and then you obviously saw her again at the finish line. But you told me while we were running that this was kind of a dream for you, because you'd always struggled with injuries growing up and you'd always had a lot of setbacks. And it kind of, the way you were talking to me almost made it feel like you kind of were in disbelief that you'd even made it to this point, that you always had written yourself off as I'm never going to be someone who can run healthy. So maybe we could talk into that first. Like, what
Right.
things did
Sure.
you manage to smash doing this marathon that had been with you for many years?
Yeah. So after college, I was really burnt out on racing. So I still had a love for running and got really into trail running, but just running casually, like going for 5-mile runs with friends at, a slow pace. And running is obviously, through writing the cookbook, still been a big part of my life, but I never had an interest to get back on a starting line. And, I think people are really surprised when they learn that I had never run a marathon before. And it was like, basically through my 20s, I was injured. I was burnt out on running. I really didn't run a lot. And my 30s were all like pregnancy, nursing, like 2 kids. But by the time you recover after having, 2 kids, by then I was like 38. And at that point I was like, I did want to run a marathon at one point in my life just to experience it. So I was like, well, I'm 38 now. I might as well save it for my 40th birthday. And it just so happened coincidentally that my 40th birthday lined up with the return to racing and the 50th anniversary of the New York Marathon, and Shalane running these 6 marathons, finishing in New York. So it was like too good to be true. And I was like, this is the race I have to do. I was definitely nervous doing the training. I wanted to prove to myself that all the nutrition advice that I was giving everyone else would work for myself. So in college, I suffered from stress fractures and low bone density, amenorrhea, compartment syndrome, and I.B.S, so a lot of stomach problems. And I never really ever enjoyed running past 5 miles because that was when my stomach, I would get like severe side stitches that are just debilitating. Like you just cannot run through them. And I had to really make some more changes to my nutrition to be able to train and do these longer runs. But it helped me so much. And I felt so great during the race, the whole 26 miles. I didn't ever once like hit a wall. Fueling was a big part of before the race. In the first 7 miles, I made like a really big point to take in a lot of calories, a lot of hydration, and a lot of fuel. And that helped me a ton. I used to think that I couldn't eat before running because I have sensitive digestion, but I've learned the opposite, that eating before running actually helps prevent the side stitches and helped me. And I've been able to, through training, like rediscover how much more energy and stronger I can feel if I do eat before running. And that was a big part of writing the Rise and Run cookbook, was developing recipes that would work for me, that I could eat right before running and feel fine. Because I know that a lot of people have the same thing where they're really afraid to eat before running.
Yeah. And do you feel like, you mentioned there that you had all these injuries, you had amenorrhea, you had, you obviously weren't getting your fueling right because of the I.B.S. You said it was I.B.S. or it was I.B.S.-like symptoms?
I was diagnosed with I.B.S. when I was 12 years old.
It was I.B.S. Okay. So, so with that, you said that, you hoped that you could prove that you could do it. Was there any part of you going into this training that was, because you'd been so successful, that you would be kind of not exposed? Like, we would never see it that way, but we're always more critical on ourselves. Like, you would be exposed as oh, this doesn't work. Like, tell us what was going through your head while you were training. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if I ended up with a stress fracture while marathon training, I would tell myself I was like a fraud, like none of my nutrition was working. But I did check my nutrient levels during training, and I was able to keep all my nutrients up, and eating was a huge part. Like, I think people would be surprised to see how much I eat in a day. It's when I'm marathon training, I already have a high metabolism, but when I'm marathon training, I'm like a grizzly bear. Like, I have really big appetite, but really eating the right foods, because I can't just eat anything, which is probably a blessing and a curse. Like, I can't get away with just snacking. Like, some people probably can get away with eating like bowls of cereal and glasses of whole milk and really easy foods, like, toast with peanut butter, but I can't eat those foods. So I do have to dedicate to cooking constantly when I'm marathon training. And I would say that is the hardest part about marathon training. The miles is the easy part. That doesn't take up as much time, but it's all the extra things that I found, like the cooking all the extra meals and doing all the extra eating and the stretching and strength training. That's the stuff that's I had a hard time finding time for, especially like stretching and the recovery.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we are definitely going to go into that in a few minutes. You said there about, eating a lot. And obviously I'm very much in the same camp as you in terms of like, don't I don't want to talk about calories. I don't want to talk about numbers. I don't want to talk about any of those specifics as someone else who, had amenorrhea, went through all that restrictive stuff. Like, I'm with you, stay away from that. But that said, maybe talk to how runners listening need to understand that it does differ per person. That was something that I really got hitched on when I was in the past. Like, I would always look at the other elites around me and say, well, I'm eating more than them. And like, well, I'm eating this, but they're not eating anything at all. So like, just talk about like how you have seen through your work that it can't be even whatever, regardless of diet, even if someone took every recipe in your cookbooks and made a meal plan, that's not going to be the same for each person, even if they're running the same mileage.
Yeah, I mean, the nutrition needs of everyone vary so much. That's why it's so important to ignore measurements and ignore diet trends and really listen to your body. Like, like one person could thrive on a vegan diet. I would like waste away on a vegan diet. I don't tolerate those foods. Like, I can't tolerate legumes. I can't do protein powders. Those really upset my digestion. So some foods that sound healthy and one person might be fine on, those same foods can make me sick. Like broccoli, for example, is like a super nutrient dense, healthy food, but it doesn't agree with me. So you have to really listen to your body. And sometimes foods that seem less healthy are the ones that are going to fuel me the best. And there's a time and a place for everything. Like, I didn't drink a lot of sports drinks before marathon training, but during marathon training, I definitely needed that extra sugar and easy fuel. And same with like the gels. I found one that I really liked that normally people probably expect I only make all my own energy bars and gels. But when you need something that's packaged and on the go during a run, there is like a time and a place for that stuff.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And did you, when you were training, you mentioned that the hard part is all the little things, and I 100% agree. But did you notice a difference could you remember back to your days in college in your 20s when you were running, and how you felt while you were running compared to now, knowing that you were fully fueled?
Yeah. I mean, I used to think that I wasn't a long distance runner because I never felt good past 5 miles. But now I realize that it was because I wasn't eating enough beforehand to feel good past 5 miles. So now I always eat, even if I'm running early, I always eat something, at least like a superhero muffin, which is small and easy to grab before an early run. And I can eat it within like 30 minutes of walking out the door. And I feel amazing. And I've heard so many women say like, I don't eat before running, like it doesn't agree with me or I don't need it. If you're running past under 5 miles, I agree that you can like walk out the door, and do a 5 mile run on not eating breakfast, but anything longer than that, I really truly believe that you're going to feel so much better and energized if you do take in something beforehand. And in college, I definitely did not do that, especially like morning runs.
Yeah. So true. Okay. So let's dig in there, it's funny, when I was running at the elite level back in 2016 and I was doing my best, I was like obsessively, I would spend hours each weekend. And like you, I'm sure you've got to the point with meal prep. When you first say meal prep to someone, they are so intimidated because you or I may say, oh, it takes 2 hours. And they're like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, there is no way it takes 2 hours, because you kind of know how to multitask when you've been doing it for a while. Like okay, I'm going to boil this water, and while I'm doing that, I'm going to da-da-da-da-da. So I had got it down to where I would spend 2 to 3 hours like roasting all these vegetables, prepping superhero muffins and other different things that sweet potato cookies, all kinds of things from your cookbooks, the lemon cornmeal scones, lemon blueberry scones, whatever. Yep. I was doing all these things. And I loved it. I had all this good food, but at the same time, that was when, for me, the most restrictive behaviors are going on. Now, fast forward to 2 kids, I could not be in a more different world in terms of my desire to prep stuff. However, you did mention about all the little things and finding the time to make meals and extra little things. So can you talk about that? Like, what if someone, be it through the just exhausted from marathon training, be it that they are exhausted from having young kids, or their careers a lot, they have a parent who's in, some needing care right now. What if someone feels like, I know this stuff is good for me, but I just don't feel like I have the energy to make this right now? And it's just so much, you mentioned, peanut butter and toast. It's just so much easier for me to grab a peanut butter and toast than to make something. What would you say to that person? Or me?
Then I would say maybe like you don't need to be marathon training at that point in your life, which is what I didn't do. Like I did not marathon train while I was at the peak of my career and breastfeeding and taking care of 2 young children. Like it just is, there's a time and a place for everything. And you can get by with a lot when you're not marathon training. Like I'm just back to my normal running now, where I'm running, 5 or 6 miles a few days a week with friends. And I've stopped doing all that extra stuff. Like I'm not making bone broth on the weekends and making double batches of superhero muffins and granola and lemon gingerade for inflammation and digestion. I've stopped doing all that stuff, but I notice a difference. Like my digestion is not as good. Like my digestion was so good during marathon training because I did all this extra stuff, and my inflammation levels dropped even in I measure my inflammation, and even after my hardest week of training, I was able to get those levels down because I was doing all that extra stuff. And I would say, like, if you don't have time to dedicate to nutrition, maybe it's not the time in your life to be, you can still be running, you can still be active, you can live super healthy and have an active life and do something active every single day. But to be out there doing, 20-mile runs on the weekend, you do have to do this extra stuff if you want to stay healthy. There aren't any shortcuts, really, honestly. I mean, there's definitely easier. Most of our recipes in our cookbook, none of it is complicated. It's all easy. If you can find time. I don't try to, when I meal prep, I'm not trying to complete entire meals on the weekends, but just I prep components so that dinner is a lot easier during the week. So that can be really simple, like cooking up using an Instant Pot where you just set it and you cook a bunch of rice at once so that you come home from a run during the week and you're able to scramble up some eggs and spinach and have that on top of rice. Like there's a lot of really easy things you can do, but as far as like shortcuts of like buying things at the store, of course, there's some stuff I buy that is good shortcut food, like whole milk yogurt and butter. And I buy sourdough bread from a local bakery, things like that. Yeah, there's a lot of that. And there are like some more nutritious snacks from certain companies. But as far as like meals, it's really hard to do it without cooking.
I mostly just wanted to hear you say that you weren't a superhuman who was, it's easy for us reading this to be like, okay, she makes her own, like you said, makes her own sports drinks. Oh, and she makes bone broth. Oh, and she makes these muffins every weekend. So it's nice to hear you say that you, maybe you can't continue all of those all the time. I also, when I do make superhero muffins or sweet potato cookies or whatever it is, I make like quadruple batches so that I can just throw them all in the freezer. So, my superhero muffins are cooking for like 3 hours at a time because of all the, I don't want to use like 8 different pans.
Your freezer is your best friend for sure. Yes. I double everything.
Yeah, it's that's definitely been a helpful thing. Actually, on that note, so one funny thing you were saying about doing too much and maybe now isn't the time, and I think that's a lesson I and many others need to hear. A few months ago, when I was in marathon training, I was saying to my mum, I was like, I just keep reaching for the easy grab stuff. And I was like, I have hummus in my fridge. I have cut up carrots in my fridge. And I was like, Mum, I think it must have been when I was still breastfeeding as well or something. I was like, the idea of carrots just aren't worth it for me. The energy it takes me, the brain power it takes me to chew those carrots is not worth the calories I'm getting. So I just can't be bothered to eat them. And she was like, I think that says something about, your life right now, rather than the fact that there's something wrong with the carrots. Like if you can't have the energy to do some...
I totally agree. Like I don't like eating. I love salads, but not sitting down to a salad with kids at the table. Like salads take so much extra effort to eat and chew. And honestly, like when I'm eating dinner with two young kids that only sit at the table for 10 minutes, I want like the most nutrient dense, highest calorie, easiest to chew foods like, bolognese sauce with spaghetti. It's like, it goes down quick. I can't sit down to a big meal size salad with kids. So I totally agree.
Thank you to Gooder for sponsoring this episode of the Running for Real podcast. Now, I've mentioned before, you will struggle to find a day where I'm not wearing a pair of Gooder. I love them. They are fun, fashionable, affordable, and they are just great to have around. I have pairs everywhere. They last a long time. My kids love putting them on their face. They're functional, and they are only $25 and $35 for the two different styles. Now, every purchase of Gooder sunglasses is backed by a 1-year warranty. They have 30-day free returns, so you can send those back if you are not liking the style, which, by the way, they have styles to match every personality. If you want the regular black framed, black lenses, go for that. But they also have really fun ones to match your personality. And Gooder is a 100% carbon neutral company. I love that they took this pledge many years ago. They also became proud members of 1% for the planet since 2018. They very much align with Running for Real and what they are doing environmentally, which means, by the way, 1% for the planet means 1% of their annual gross sales go directly to environmental nonprofits working towards making our world a better place. So some of my favorites, I did mention the Black with Black. That's a ginger soul. I also love Gardening with a Kraken. The names, by the way, amazing. Just so fun. And there's also some aviator style ones, which I love as well. So you can go to goodr.com/Tina. That's gooder.com/Tina to get yourself 15% off your order. They also have some blue blockers there if you want to go check those out. So go to gooder.com/Tina to go get yourself 15% off. I do want to talk about kids, but I want to give people kind of an out if they don't have kids. So we'll get onto that in a few minutes. But going back to the marathon there. So you and I, took it very casually the first few miles with Lindsay. We even stopped for a bathroom break, which I'm not sure I ever expected to do in a race. Like I've never done that, and I don't know. I mean, I guess I had always left it open, but we just casually went in and went out, and it was just really a really special experience to have that being together. And you were very dedicated with your bottle that you were like, I'm going to finish this by 7 miles, and you did it exactly. But I would love to hear your experience of, you mentioned about college running and just running in your 20s. There's not really anything like the first 10 miles of a marathon where you are taking it easy when you're doing shorter distances, because you have to kind of get into the hard part pretty quickly. So I'd love to hear your experience of that, like the first part of that marathon where you are really just on an easy run.
Yeah, no, honestly, it was so good to have you for those first 10 miles because you kept telling us to slow down. And
what did I called myself the pace police or something, didn't I?
Yeah, because I felt so good, and I felt like I could have gone so much faster, and it was almost hard to go any slower. But
I'm wondering maybe you shouldn't have been going that slow.
No, I'm happy with it because I ran 15 minutes faster than my goal time, and I felt really good the whole race. And you told me, like, just right before you left us around 10 miles, you're like, just so you know, like, it gets really hard around mile like 15 to 17 and like Fifth Avenue. And so I kept holding back, like waiting for it to get hard. And honestly, I felt good the whole way.
Wow.
And when I got to mile, I was afraid to like pick up the pace because I did just want to enjoy that race. Like I didn't want to be like pushing through a pain cave. I guess at my point in my life at 40, it's like I'm doing this. I'm not out there to like prove a specific time. I wanted to run a good race, but I also wanted to enjoy it and not get back to how much pain. I used to run through some like incredibly intense pain when I was in college. So I felt amazing the whole race. And when I finally got to mile 20, I was like, okay, maybe I should push myself a little bit, and picked it up. And I ran my last 6 miles were my fastest miles. But I never hit a wall. I texted Shalane. I was like, I feel like I missed out on something, because people talk about these emotional experiences during the marathon where they like hit this wall and they push through it. And then like they get to the finish line and they're in tears because they've accomplished something really hard. And I never got to that point in the race. So I feel like I missed out on it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I freaked you out with my comment then. I made you hold back.
But it was good, because like, I loved those last 6 miles, were so much fun, picking up the pace and just going and finishing strong and feeling good. And I felt good like after the race too, which was nice.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw your write up about the final few miles and the finish line. And then, what happened after the finish line, it just looked, like such a special day for you and Shalane. It was really cool to read that. And how have you been recovering since? Let's ask you this. How was your experience of the day after, when you wake up? And you probably heard people talking about the day after marathons, right? So how was that?
That day I was definitely sore, but not the 2 days later. I was more sore, and like I flew 2 days later, and like sitting on the plane and being like walking around the airport, I was more sore like the second day than the first day. I woke up not too bad, but yeah, definitely sore. My upper back has been like tight ever since the marathon. Now we're exactly a month out. It was 1 month ago.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, as we record this, that's really cool. Yes, and then recovery has been fine since getting back to running.
Yeah, I took 2 weeks off. I was still walking and doing some yoga, and chasing after my son rides a bike, so running after him on his bike, running home from his school, which is like 1.5 miles, and I really enjoy doing that. So I was still active, but I took 2 weeks completely off of running, and now I'm back running. Turned 40 this weekend. We were up in Seattle celebrating my 40th birthday, and somehow ended up the first day of my 40th birthday running 8.5 miles. I've been running like a little bit shorter, but just got out there and was enjoying the views in Seattle, and ran with my husband, and we ended up doing a longer run than we had planned on. So, but it's good. This winter, like I really like cross training in the winter and mixing it up. I'm not like a one sport person. So winter, I do more Nordic skiing, like backcountry skiing, cross country skiing, and strength training. I want to get really back into doing some strength training this winter, and yoga.
That's great. Yeah. Well, I've talked a lot on this podcast about how much I am a big fan of David Epstein's book. It's right here next to me. And he's always talking about, doing a variety of things, and how good for us it is to be constantly, working new muscles and trying new things out. So that's awesome to do that. It is hard though. I don't know if you would be able to have any advice on this if it is something you've just always done. So maybe you don't have I guess you probably did in college. Did you ever have a time where it was just all about running?
Oh yeah, definitely. I never got into cross training until after I stopped running competitively in college. But now, like, I do more biking and swimming and other things. Like, I think it's just natural as you get older, like you have to mix up your sports. Your body doesn't like doing the same thing always.
Yeah.
So in college I ran year round, and I got injured year round. So
So that was a lesson in itself. And how does it feel being 40? Like, was it more intimidating in the years coming up to it to actually now being it?
I'm only 40 in 2 days. So ask me, it hasn't really sunk in yet. I feel like the youngest 40-year-old ever. I don't feel like I'm 40. I feel like I've always in my career, like when I worked in the corporate world, I was always like the youngest one on my team, in my jobs and teams. And when I ran competitively, I was always like the youngest person. So somehow I like stuck that mindset that I'll always be the youngest. But then I realized like my assistant is 10 years younger than me, and it makes me feel old. But I just, I guess having kids keeps you young, but I don't feel 40.
I do think we're very fortunate in our sport that there are so many women who, or at least in the world I operate in. There are so many women who are in their 40s just absolutely like crushing it or doing things that are so inspiring that make it less intimidating, but even make it kind of almost like cool to be 40. So I do feel like that is different to maybe some other industries and things in our world where it is made to feel like once you reach 30 you're on the downhill. Whereas I do feel like our sport, even as a sport where people always used to say like, oh, women have got to hit their peak in their late 20s, I do think there's a lot of women who are rewriting that. And so I wonder if that comes into it at all. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, definitely. Most of my running friends are turned 40 this past year or already in their 40s, and they're all in amazing shape and look a lot younger than 40. And all my friends who are already 40 tell me like it's the best decade because you know what you want in life, and you just don't take anything for granted anymore, and you just really like appreciate everything more. So yeah, I'm excited. I think that I'll continue. It took me a while to get back into running after having kids, and I'm excited to be able to keep it up now.
Yeah, this is fun. So let's transition into a little bit more about your, I would just love to know two things that I was thinking about just in knowing we were going to be talking today was, I mentioned 3 times New York Times bestseller. You're obviously a competitive person. You wouldn't have done college sports without being that. And you mentioned about being in the corporate world as well. That definitely would have made you honed in on that. Now, young kids are able to pull the perspective back a bit. So you gain some of the big picture stuff. But when it comes to your work beyond your running, how do you define what is enough for you? And do you still struggle with like, I want more, I need to achieve more, I need to figure out what else I can do here? Just talk to that a little bit about enoughness.
That's something I've really struggled with as I was turning 40 and thinking about like where I want to be spending my time. And I definitely haven't figured it out yet because I turned down a lot of opportunities. A lot of people would be surprised, but I'm the primary caregiver for our family. So I only work mornings. My kids are home. So this is the first year we kept we pulled our kids out of like traditional school for a whole year during COVID, and my kids were mostly home with me. And when they were younger, they only went to preschool from like 9 a.m. to 12:30. So I had very limited work hours. I have my mom in town, so she helped out here and there, but like usually only one day a week, and she'll only take one kid at a time. So it doesn't really always help. So, by 2:00, my kids are home and my work day is very short. So I've had to be like very organized. I've had to turn down a lot of really big opportunities, and it is hard. Like people would probably be surprised like how little time I actually spend on social media and Instagram. Like I can't reply to most people's questions because I post a lot. Try to post inspiring content regularly, but I don't have time to just like hang out on social media or on the app. I have an assistant to help like reply to fan emails, and I've had the same assistant, and she's amazing, for 8 years. And so she helps me with like recipe testing and social media and content and things like that. But I just feel like I have missed out on a lot of like opportunities that come with being an author. I've turned down a lot of like speaking engagements and, things like that. So travel and speaking at like retreats and things like all the like fun things you can add on once you become an author. I've had to really pick and choose and not be able to do everything.
Yeah, as someone who's very much in the same boat, I mean, I'm sure the opportunities coming to me aren't the same level that you are getting, but I'm very much in a similar boat. I have no family near here, and we've got the one babysitter. My daughter is sleeping right now, so it's tough. And along that, I would love for you to talk to this, for any other young mothers out there, or even anyone who just feels like they can never do enough. It's hard when I find it difficult when my kids are playing and there's that urge for me to like, oh, they're distracted, they're playing together. I should just go, reply to this email, or I should just go, I don't know, start typing a social media post. But as we know with social media, once you start doing something, even if your kid comes towards you, and at least I find this, there's that like voice in my head saying, she's looking at you, like, put it down. Like I usually do, but it takes me a good like 20 seconds to like, just gotta stop typing before I actually do it. But like, do you find that difficult? Like you said, you've turned things down. Is there that, when they are distracted, do you find that you get that urge to try and squeeze something in? So maybe that's one thing you can do because you are saying no to things.
Yeah. I mean, they say like that it takes 20 minutes to focus once you sit down at your computer, but often I'm only working in 20-minute bursts. Mm-hmm. So, I am guilty of squeezing that in. Like the second I see my kids are engaging, my second kid plays on his own really well. So I can like sit at the counter with him in the background playing. During COVID, my kids have definitely watched too many videos because we don't have as many options. Like they used to just like run around, we live in a great neighborhood with lots of opportunities for play dates. And we used to do a lot more play dates, but now COVID, like we're really only playing with a small handful of friends. So there aren't as many of those like chances to just send my daughter out the door to go run around or go to a friend's house. So my kids watch too many videos. When I do have deadlines or something that needs to get done, I try to limit it to like no more than 45 minutes a day. But there are days where it's like, oh man, if they could just watch 10 more minutes, I could get so much more done.
Mm-hmm. And do you wrestle with that like guilt?
Oh yeah. I every like month I tell my husband, like, I think I'm going to take off a year completely off of work until my youngest starts kindergarten. But it's hard. It would be like, because I'm at the peak of my career, it would be like a doctor going through like, 8 years of school and then deciding they're going to stay home with kids. Like I think that's the hardest part is like, I wish if I could have, I would have put this career off for, 5 years and started it now with my kids being old enough that they are finally in like more hours of school. If I could have known, I would have waited 5 years to start my career. But then again, I might have missed that window of opportunity.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'd imagine there's some elements of the stage you were at in life was able to write to people in a way that made them feel seen and understood because they were in it too. And then that kind of, snowballed into
I also think if I had stayed home for those 5 years, I would really struggle turning my brain back on. I do think that it's really hard to get back into a career mindset if you do stay home for 5 years or 8 years with kids. And I honestly, like, I admire women who stay home. Like, I think that is incredible if you can do that. And one of the most important jobs in the world and one of the hardest jobs. So if you are someone who's staying home with kids, I think it's incredible if you can do that and make it work.
Thank you to Zencastr for sponsoring this episode of the Running for Real podcast and for keeping us afloat in every way in terms of our podcasting needs. I can't imagine my life without Zencastr now. We use it for Running Realized. We use it for Running for Real. And podcasting remotely can be a real challenge, but it doesn't have to be. And that's where Zencastr comes in and really shines. It's this all-in-one web-based solution that makes the process quick and painless the way it probably should be. Now, if you know me, you know that I like to keep things real. And I love that Zencastr is able to give me that quality I can rely on without also me having to make things be perfect or make things be, feeling inauthentic to me. They have this high quality that provides crystal clear sound and this gorgeous HD video that allows me to communicate and connect with my guests to take the podcast to the next level. And I want to mention, it is so easy to use, even for my guests that aren't tech savvy. There is nothing to download. They just click on the link and we start recording. Zencaster is all about making your podcasting easy, and with everything from local recording to automatic post-productions in the tool, you don't have to leave your browser to get the episode done. If you want to have the same easy experience as I do for all my podcasting and content needs, you can go to zencaster.com/pricing and enter code running4real. That's the word for running for real. And you will get 30% off your first 3 months. That's zencastr.com/pricing. And you can use code running4real to get 30% off your first 3 months. It's time for you to share your story. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the picky kids thing. So I actually am really curious with this because my daughter is also very picky. I actually did a session the other day with a behavioral therapist that was going on at her preschool. I watched it, the Zoom call, and I definitely think my daughter has a sensory thing with food after that.
Yeah.
But it can be, there's a lot of shame surrounding when you have a picky child, right? And especially someone like you who, look how well I eat, look at these foods that I prepare and they're so nutritious and good for your body. Like, can you talk to how that has been having a picky child? Obviously it's given you new perspective, but like, how have you worked through those feelings within you?
Yeah. So my first kid, she ate everything. One of her first foods was like, she went from breast milk to bone broth, and she ate, before she had teeth, she was eating quinoa salads. Like I would pulse the veggies really fine in a food processor, and she was drinking beet smoothies and eating, we would go to friends' houses for dinner and she would sit at the table for an hour and try everything. And she would eat like even gamey foods like bison, and she has an incredible palate. She can tell you exactly what's in food. We take her out to restaurants and it's really fun because she'll try sushi. She'll try, she doesn't always like it, but she's always willing to try it. And she will, like, I'll make a soup and she'll say, like broccoli chef soup, and she'll say, "Mom, this is so good. Thank you for making this. Can you make this again tomorrow?" And like, she makes me feel so good. And I was, with her being my first kid, I was like, I don't understand what's wrong with parents, like why they can't figure out how to feed children. But I also always had balance. Like I don't believe we have snack foods in our house. We have crackers, we have chips. I buy chocolate. We go to the bakery and get croissants and cinnamon rolls, and we eat pizza on Fridays for takeout and ice cream. And I always believed in having balance because it's not going to be long before she's off on her own with friends and can pick whatever she wants. And I want her to make good choices, but also not be afraid to have candy on Halloween or to have, so we always had that. And she makes really good choices. She'll go to a birthday party and I'll watch her take a slice of cake with blue frosting, which is anything with food dye is like my least favorite thing. I'm okay with sugar, but I cannot stand food dye, but I won't say anything. And I'll watch her take a couple bites and then decide she doesn't like it because it's too sweet. Oh, wow. And then now I have this son who's the complete opposite. And I do feel like we need to eliminate snack foods from our house because literally I also think he has like a sensory thing with textures, and he really craves like crunchy food.
Yes. It's the same as my daughter.
He does not like, he'll just like look at something and decide not to taste it based on like the look of the texture of it. And so I do feel like I need to draw a line and like not buy O's, like, because he craves like crackers and O's. And if it wasn't in the house, like it would be easier, but I don't want to be like a really restrictive parent. And he goes to preschool where they serve food and they have crackers at lunchtime. And so I am hearing from the teachers that he's not eating the lunch, but he's eating the crackers. And so he's already at an age where I'm not able to like completely eliminate those foods. So it's been hard. I do end up cooking his favorite things like over and over again, because I know those are really healthy. Like I found like, there are like 5 or 6 dinners that he loves that are really healthy, nutritious. They're not vegetables, but it's still, I think parents get caught up that it has to be vegetables. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of nutrition in other foods that are not vegetables. Like he loves my homemade maple turmeric roasted cashews. He loves those. He does like beet smoothies when I make them with strawberries. he does love sweet potato fries, like homemade sweet potato fries. And I make them like more crispy for him. He loves he will eat meat if it's like slow simmered. So I do a lot of like the pulled chicken recipe from our cookbook, or bolognese sauce or chili, where I simmer in the meat for a really long time so it's super soft. And he'll eat just the meat out. He won't eat like the vegetables that are in the soup, but he will eat like components, and he'll eat like rice and coconut oil. So I do find that like I am adjusting, like we're eating the same meals often during the week, because I don't want to battle him, and it's not necessarily what the rest of the family wants to eat. And my daughter's not getting as much diversity, but I'm hoping that this is just a stage and we will get back to being able to cook other meals. But honestly, like 90% of our dinners come from my cookbooks, because those are the foods that he'll eat. I would love to cook unique things from new cookbooks and try like Korean food and start cooking like ramen and things like that, more exciting. But I don't, because I'm not going to cook two different dinners, for one for him and one for us.
Yeah, I hear you. I've been 90% of what you just said. I know. Yeah. And it is hard because, there's that, actually, speaking of this, so I'm getting ready to go home to England, hopefully, at the end of this week. Hopefully when this comes out, I am there. I'm preparing for, comments of aunts or other well-intentioned people saying, oh, come on, like eat your food, eat that food that I've made for you. And having to, as you and I both have had kind of that past with amenorrhea, and trying to, and I'm sure many of the listeners have, like, you don't want to like put that on your child, how damaging that can be. But also, there is that part of you that, wants so badly for them to be a good eater, and as you said, to try new things. So like you said with your daughter, be able to go for sushi and have them be like, oh, this is delicious, like, I love this. So thank you for sharing that, because I know that will help other people, myself included, knowing that it's not just it's not about like you can do the best you can and it still might not work out.
Especially like traveling. Like we just came off a weekend in Seattle traveling and staying in a hotel. And I normally try to avoid restaurants with my son, because he will throw huge tantrums because the food's not how he expects it. He doesn't, like even if it's a food he's used to eating, like how the restaurant prepares it is not how he wants it. And so, I mean, honestly, this past weekend, he lived off of pizza and croissants and like all like snacky stuff. I packed some of my own snacks, but a lot of it, he had like definitely a really unhealthy weekend. And I just try not to stress about it, because now we're back home, and I cooked him, his favorite homemade waffles this morning. And we did like rice and soup last night, and we'll do sweet potato fries and things I know like he'll eat again. It's just like trying not to stress about it at the time.
Yeah, definitely. So related to that, like, I mentioned about, what you're known for with your cookbooks, and just the way that you eat. And then do you ever feel within yourself that you're self-conscious in terms of like, if people see you out and they see you, I mean, I know you stress very much that there is no food that's a bad food, but do you ever feel pressure that people are watching you, or that you are, people are going to like expose you and see something in you that, I don't know, that, we all have those things that we feel self-conscious of,
Right. No, actually in Bend, there's a lot of Run Fast, Eat Slow fans. So I do get stopped a lot, and especially at the grocery store. And I always make a joke with Shalane. I'm like, I don't want them looking in my cart, because I do have like tortilla chips in there and ice cream and beer. But no, I don't feel embarrassed, because I wish people, I think I need to put it out there more on social that I do eat normal. Like my family does go out for tacos. We do get pizza takeout on Fridays. And like, I want people to know, like, if you think if you are eating perfectly, you probably aren't. Like if you're stressing that much where your diet is like perfect every single day, then it's maybe you're not enjoying food, and it's not, it gets to a point where it's unhealthy to eat overly healthy.
Yeah. Well, I definitely know that too well. Okay. So with that, we're going into, or we are in holiday season, and towards the end of the year will come the messaging the whole month of December is about, celebrations and kind of enjoying foods. And there's a lot of pressure that people feel to like, come on, eat that food, or like, I made this, or, there's a lot of that, which is fine. And you and I and many others obviously encourage people to celebrate. There are, don't feel that pressure, like eat what you want to eat. But then after that, quickly towards the end of the year comes that messaging about losing weight. So as we go into that, I'd just love you to maybe talk a little bit for someone who does tend to feel that pretty hard, coming down maybe the high or the lows of being with family, and going into this time where we're hammered from every direction about changing our bodies and changing our lives. What would you say to someone who feels sensitive towards that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's that food is meant to be enjoyed, and everything should taste delicious, even healthy food. And we have a lot of like wholesome sweet treats in our book that can satisfy those sweet cravings. But it is hard when you're like, traveling to family's house where they're cooking with, I don't know, Crisco or something. Not, I think butter is healthy for you. So I make a lot of homemade wholesome treats with butter. But if someone's using like vegetable oil or shortening and, it's like not as healthy, like you can just have balance, like have that treat, but within reason, like, and then have a healthy meal to go with it. Or like coming off this whole weekend of my 40th birthday, it was like such a overindulgent, unhealthy weekend. And I'm fine with that because now I'm back home and I can cook all the good, healthy things that I crave and, make some soups and salads to go with dinner. But yeah, I think it is really hard, all the messaging at the start of the new year, because it's not just about weight loss or getting back into fitness, but it's about everything, like defining your goals for the whole year and career and self-care. And like all the messaging around self-care is sometimes funny to me, because that is like another to-do to add to your to-do list. I guess for me, just because I enjoy food year round, I don't like crave overindulging during the holidays. I think if you restrict yourself year round, you are going to, if there's a plate of cookies in front of you, really like crave it and want it more. But if you always have some kind of like wholesome treat that you've baked, like muffins or my like homemade cookies, I like having a sweet treat every day. So I have something like my homemade peanut butter cups are in the freezer, or I'll have like a square of dark chocolate, like because I'm not restricting myself ever. The holidays aren't a big deal to me. Like to go to a party and there's, a lot of cakes and cookies and pies out. I don't crave that food because I enjoy food year round. So like the more you restrict yourself, the more you're going to want that food. But if you have balance year round, like it doesn't become as big of a deal. I guess it's hard to tell. Our culture is so like obsessive with it that it's hard to have like a healthy mindset around food. But I have been able to find that just, ignore all those diet trend messages out there, because they usually backfire.
So then what about, you've obviously got that healthy relationship with food, and you just said there about not craving those foods, but you must have had experiences where people have said to you, oh, come on, like you're always just eating so healthy, like have some of this. Like, what is your response there to that person?
Yeah, I mean, like my mom, just for, I guess, an example, my mom's coming over for Christmas dinner and she just texted me that she ordered a pie from like this massive like company that she thinks is homemade, but they're not. It's like a massive company. And I was like, in my head, I was like, my daughter and I have so much fun making homemade pie. Like, why is she bringing a store-bought pie to dinner? That's like one of our favorite things to make. And I was like, at first I was like so annoyed, and I was like, I was going to write her back and tell her to like cancel the order. But then I'm just like, okay, whatever. Like, my daughter and I will make our homemade pie a different night, and I'll eat a slice of her store-bought gross pie. But yeah, I'll have a small slice and be fine with it. I guess I don't really surround myself with people. Maybe I'm in like a small pocket in Bend, Oregon, where everyone wants things to be homemade and wholesome and healthy. And I don't really have that circle of friends and family really that do that, like say like eat more, push you to eat something you don't really want to eat. But I would just ignore them, like have a small slice or a smaller serving, or don't finish it if you don't want to. But otherwise ignore them.
I think that's a good lesson though, even though, you are definitely in a pocket in Bend, I'd imagine. It is a good lesson that, while we're all going to have someone in our lives who is going to make comments or do something like you said about the store-bought pie, it is about who you surround yourself with. And if you find yourself surrounded with lots of people who are doing that, like you have to re-examine, like, are they really after your best interests, or are they saying things that make them feel better about themselves? So I think there's a good lesson in there. Thank you.
Right.
Okay, let's talk about, we've mentioned Rise and Run a few times. So that's your newest book. Talk a little bit about that, where people can obviously they go to their local bookstores. Just tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, so Rise and Run just launched. You can find it anywhere books are sold locally, or we have a list of retailers online on our website, which is runfasteatslow.com. And it's by far our most beautiful and inspiring cookbook. We really poured our heart and souls into this book. It tells a lot more of Shalane and I's personal story. It's got a lot of great training advice in there and how to start your day more mindfully. We believe that how you start your day impacts your whole day. And that's everything from your mindset in the morning to getting outside and getting like first rays of sunlight, like setting your circadian rhythm by moving outside. That doesn't mean you have to go for a 10-mile run, but even just a 2-mile walk in the morning at first light can really impact your entire day in a positive way. And the biggest part of starting your day right is what you eat in the morning. So having a really nourishing breakfast that fills you up. There's nothing worse than like a breakfast that like 1 hour later you're hungry. And I experience this a lot while marathon training. Like you eat breakfast and you're hungry the entire morning until lunch. You aren't going to be as productive at work. You're not going to be able to focus. So eating a really indulgent, nourishing breakfast first thing in the morning can give you energy for the whole day and keep you from snacking. And it sounds crazy to sit down to like this big hearty meal at the start of the day, but it really does keep you from having all those afternoon snack cravings and sweet cravings. And especially like what we were talking about before, like, overindulging during the holidays. I guess I don't get those like big sugar cravings because I am eating a really hearty meal at the start of the day. I still like a sweet treat in the afternoon, but I'm not like, you can put a plate of cookies in front of me. I'm not going to like polish it off because I'm so satisfied with eating these like well-rounded meals. So Rise and Run is so much more than just a breakfast cookbook. We have like snacks in there, and a lot of the meals can double as lunch or dinner. And for my kids, one of their favorite things is when we do breakfast for dinner and everyone wears their pajamas to the table. So we do a lot of breakfast is the best meal of the day. And it's the one meal that like my son always loves. So we do a lot of like breakfast for dinner.
I love that. That's great. And how many superhero recipes are there in there? 22?
Yeah, so 24 new superhero muffin recipes. And my favorite new addition that we've never had before in any of our books are the Savory superhero muffin recipes. They're really satisfying, especially like me. I crave something salty in the morning. I could start my day with like a steak or a burger, but this helps satisfy that salty craving in the morning. And they're high in protein and loaded with veggies. So it's a great grab and go meal that you can make a whole like 12 of them on the weekend and have breakfast all week.
Yeah. Well, it's funny when I got so I have made some of the recipes in there and love them. And my daughter, unsurprisingly, loved Lily's chocolate superhero muffins. Lily is your daughter, for the listeners. Usually when I get a recipe book sent, I usually, as we do, we fold over the pages we fold over the pages that I want to make. But with the muffins at the beginning, I was literally like, fold the page, fold the page, fold the page, fold the page, until I was like, okay, like there is literally no point in you doing this because you are folding every page. So they all sound amazing, and I'm excited to check the other ones out. But it is a beautiful book. As you said, it's nice to get to know you both a bit more. And I really enjoyed taking the time, a few pages a day to get to know you and Shalane a bit more. And yeah, it's great. So I will put links in the show notes. And for the listeners, if you use bookshop.org, that will send money to, or it'll kick back a small amount to local bookstores. So that's one way you can support your local bookstore by buying it online without going to your local bookstore if you need that. So I will put a link for you there if that is the case. Or if you can go in your local bookstore, even better. Where can people go find you if they want to follow along in the future?
I'm on Instagram. I avoid TikTok at all costs. I don't have time to add on another social media channel. So I don't understand TikTok, but you can find me on Instagram. I hope in 2022, my goal is to put out a lot more video content that helps people learn to save time in the kitchen, like short little videos of how to meal prep and things. So it's Elyse Kopecky at Instagram.
And make sure you have some videos of you having pizza on a Friday night as well.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. I'm going to do a post about picky eaters and how to navigate that. Cause I think I was meant to have a picky kid so that I could relate more to parents, and who knows, maybe this will result in a book down the road.
Yeah. That's where I wish you'd started your career earlier. So I could have read that book right now.
Right.
Thank you so much, Elyse. Really appreciate you and all that you are doing to make our world a better place. Thank you so much.
And same to you, Tina. Thanks for your dedication. Loving your new podcast too. What's the new one?
Running Realized.
Yeah, I listened to that last weekend and just loved it. So keep up your good work. And it's good to see you again exactly a month after the New York Marathon.
No, that was meant to be. Thank you so much. Hi friends, just a quick message to say a big thank you to the Running for Real team. While I may be the face of Running for Real and the voice behind the podcast, there are a group of people who are working tirelessly to provide everything that runners could need within our community to make our community stronger, better, and evolve and grow and learn from one another. We are working really hard to make Running for Real the place we believe it can be within our community. I just want to take a moment to thank everyone on our team. That is Victoria, Stacy, Sandy, Sally, Maria, Kelsey, Kat, Jeremy, and Erica. I appreciate each and every one of you and the hard work that you put in. Now let's get back to the show. So thankful to Elyse for her vulnerability, her courage, openness, and honesty that she shared with us in that episode. And I have to say, as I said in the interview, it was kind of a relief to hear her say that she also has a picky eater. As someone else with a picky eater child, I just was really struggling and feeling like I was just failing. So that gave me a lot of comfort. And it was nice to hear a little bit more about her in a deeper way. And I hope you enjoyed that and getting to know her a little bit more. Now, I know that this is a tough time of year. In terms of the conversations that are happening. And I hope that what we talked about today was helpful for you. But if this is something that you are working through, I would encourage you to go back to listen about a month ago, maybe not a month ago, 3 weeks ago, to my episode that I released on a Monday instead of a together run, where I talked about the just the conversations that have happening right now about body image and about just believing in yourself. So if you are struggling with that, I would encourage you to go listen to that. I will put a link in the show notes so you can find links to everything we talked about today and go get yourself a copy of her book from that bookshop link I mentioned if you're going to buy it online by going to runningforreal.com/episode 279. You can also just go to runningforreal.com and find it from there. I want to take a moment to thank our sponsors of this episode, the people that allow us to continue doing this. So thank you to Gooder. You can get 15% off Gooder by going to GOODR/Tina. I want to thank Tracksmith. You can send 5% of your order to Runners for Public Lands, a nonprofit that is doing incredible work putting running and environmental action together by using code TINA15 at tracksmith.com. And thank you to Zencastr for sponsoring this episode. You can go to zencastr.com and use code running for real. That's the word running for real. That will get you 30% off the first 3 months of this platform that we know and love here at Running for Real. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate each and every one of you. And I would like to wish you a happy holidays. I hope however you are celebrating, you are feeling loved and appreciated. I certainly appreciate you. And if you ever need me, I'm around. Take care, my friends. I'll see you next week.